resources. I should have titled this New Resources at the Georgia Archives, because I'm going to be talking about more than just online resources. My presentation is not that long, so there will be plenty of time for questions at the end. I want to talk about what we have been doing during COVID. Let's see. We had, when we had to close the reference library for COVID-19, 3 major database projects that we had to complete regardless of COVID. But having that extra time with not having to staff the reference library did give us some time to work on those projects, which involve data migration, testing, and training, and so that we were able to complete them more efficiently and quickly, rather than had we been open full time. So in some ways it was making lemonade out of lemons, or the best out of a bad situation, or whatever other cliches you want to use. One of those was a new patron registration system. Oh, first of all, I want to back out here and go to our website. Actually, it was Ask an Archivist.
Kayla, can you share your screen, please?
I'm sorry, I thought I had. Share screen. There, can you see it now?
No.
Okay.
Oh, wait. Yeah, we can see it now.
Okay, sorry. The first project that we had to complete was Ask an Archivist. This is our email reference service that you may be familiar with. The service was purchased by another company, so we had to migrate everything out of one service to another. You did not notice this because the form that you used to submit your question here did not change, but the database itself did. The back end changed completely, the colors and everything. What it is a database where your questions and our answers are all contained in one database, and we have questions going back to 2003. What this does for us is we have not only the questions, but the answers as well. And all of the archivists can see the questions and answers. We can add notes if an archivist who is not assigned the question has an idea about what resources can be used to answer the question. They can add notes. If there's a phone call that comes in before the question is submitted, archivists can add a note about the question to add more context. We can also have scripts about answers to common questions that are asked over and over again, such as our hours, so we don't have to type it over and over again, or questions about answers about vital records, where you need to go to get more recent vital records, or where we don't have vital records before 1919, so that we don't have to type that over and over again. Also, for questions that we know have been asked before, and what did we say? We know that this has been asked before. What was the answer? We can search on that and come up with what did we say? Let's be consistent in our answers, or what was the resource that we used to answer that question? And some of those can be pretty obscure, but it will trigger somebody's memory, and we can search on that. The search engine in the new software is much better. The notes and some of the features are just much better. So we really like this software. We had a deadline where we had to get out of the old system. So we were able to do that much more quickly and efficiently. The second, let me go back here. The second, and I'm sorry, I'm not that familiar with Zoom. The second feature that we had was a new patron registration system. Can you see this? Maggie?
The ask an archivist submission request.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
I need to go back here to new share. We did also have a new patron registration system that we moved to. We were using a
You might want to, it's not in presenter mode, Kayla.
okay, sorry.
I think Zoom might be picky and wants you to have it in presenter mode before you hit share.
It is in share. Wait a minute.
You have to put, I think, the PowerPoint in presenter mode before you hit share. So try unsharing your screen and then putting PowerPoint on presenter mode and then resharing it. I don't know if that works or not.
I am completely out of here. Sorry. Okay.
I think something was frozen or something, but now it's okay.
Okay. Share again.
Yeah, put it in presenter mode and then share again.
Presenter.
Put the PowerPoint in the presenter mode so that you don't see the side slides, you just see the full slide.
Okay.
And then hit share and see if that works.
Let me get out of this. Okay, now are you seeing it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I see a couple of black marks in front of the screen. Does anybody else see that? Black boxes?
Yes, they're there, Maggie.
Yeah. Yeah, for some reason, it's like it froze up and it's leaving black marks in front of your.
Okay.
Oh, I see. So close that box. It's something you have up on a screen. Yeah, just close that. Okay, now it's gone. And up at the very top, there's one more across the top if you want to move that or close that.
That will not close.
Okay. Well, just make sure you say what's underneath that at the very top because it's obscured.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, let me go back. Okay, we have a new patron registration system. Hey. How do I get rid of this?
The one at the top.
Uh-huh.
Let's try more. See if you can. Don't leave. See if you can drag it down. There you go. Drag it down to the very bottom.
Okay. Sorry, folks. We had a new patron registration system, and I do apologize here.
You're fine. That's great.
That we had to move to. Boy, it went away. Okay. We were simply using an Access database that was on a server that our information technology system, which is in Athens, required us to, they were decommissioning it and said, you have to get out of this database. So we chose to use a patron registration, an online patron registration system called Aon that's used by many archives and library systems. It is, so when you come to the archives now to register, you will fill out an online form and it goes into a database. What this does is it not only tracks our patron registrations, but it also tracks visits and copy orders and records pulls so that we have a record of the records that you pull, and that if you ask us about certain orders, then we know what you've done. And what records you've pulled. And if you have any questions about that, we can answer it. With tracking copy orders, then we can follow that order throughout the archives, and it makes it much easier to track. The most important thing that we get out of this is statistics, so that we know, instead of just guessing how many patrons we have per month and which days of the week are the busiest and per hour, we now have statistics to back that up, and also geographical area where patrons come from. And also when you fill it out and you say whether you are a genealogical researcher or a legal researcher or an academic researcher, then we have statistics to back that up. So it quantifies what we already know, or what we maybe clarifies what we didn't know. For instance, we've always said that our second largest category of researchers are academic and legal researchers, but we've initially found that the legal researchers are a more distant third. Academic researchers, there are more of those than legal researchers. It's just that the legal researchers, because the questions are more difficult to answer and we pull so many more records of them, that it just seemed as if there were more than there actually are. That's important to know. So we have now the statistics to back up and know how to distribute resources for archivists to cover certain times of the day of the week, and also to make requests for staffing. So this is going to be very important for us. And I want to back away from the databases for a moment and tell you about a couple of other resources that we have added now for you to use. Microfilm of the Atlanta Constitution from 1868 to 2013, and of the Atlanta Journal from 1883 to 2001. And remember that the Atlanta Constitution and Journal merged in 2001. So we have that from 2001 to 2013. And this microfilm comes to us courtesy of Georgia Public Library Service. Now, you may not know that GPLS had office space at the Georgia Archives from 2011 to last June, when they moved out and moved to another facility. They downsized and they did not have enough room to take the microfilm with them. So they donated it to the Georgia Archives. Now, we also have the Atlanta Constitution online, a ProQuest database from 1868 to 1983. This is funded courtesy of the R.J. Taylor Foundation. It's keyword searchable, and you can print out scans of articles from the database. But the quality of some of those scans, especially from earlier, are not very good. They're pretty bad, some of them. So we're hoping that with the microfilm, that if you find an article that you want, that you'll be able to get a better print of it. And of course, the Atlanta Journal We don't have a database for that. So that gives us much more coverage. And of course, we have microfilm for some of these newspapers, but there are gaps in those, and we didn't have anything for a good portion of the early 20th century to mid-century. So now we have much more coverage of that. And the Atlanta Journal has articles that the Constitution doesn't, and it also has obituaries that the Constitution does not have. So we hope that you'll be able to use and enjoy this new resource. Another new resource is a new Scan Pro 3000 microfilm scanner. And this is courtesy of the Joseph Habersham chapter of the Daughters of the American Revolution and the Georgia chapter of the Huguenot Society. The Scan Pro 3000 has become sort of the industry standard for library and archives with microfilm readers and scanners. And some of our members have used this and really liked it and thought it would be great if the Georgia Archives had one. And so the DAR and the Huguenot Society made a generous donation for the Georgia Archives to acquire one. This reader scanner is totally software driven. You have to use the software of the computer in order to advance and reverse the microfilm, apart from just scanning and printing the scans of the microfilm, getting copies of that. So I think some of our users are a little bit leery of using it and worried about it, but it is easy to use. What's wonderful about it is that it has an auto adjust feature that corrects images of some of the worst microfilm that we have and makes wonderful, it makes it more legible and it makes wonderful copies of it. The icons are pretty self-explanatory and easy to use. So I think that once you get familiar with that, you'll really, really enjoy this piece of equipment. Here's an example of this, and this is from Georgia Land Lottery Plat Book. The microfilm is in pretty good shape. It's not the worst example I could have found. But on the left, you have a scan from one of the old reader printers, and you see that it's it's blurry, a little bit opaque. And on the right, you have the same page, a scan from the Scan Pro 3000, and you see that it is much sharper and much clearer. So you see what an improvement that this is using the new microfilm scanner. Our third project that we had was finding aids from Georgia Archives. And this is a new database for our finding aids database for government archives, government records, and county records. Why did we need to do this?
Current slide, so they'll go back.
I need to go to internet. I need to change screens.
Hmm.
Screen, blue share.
Share. Can you see this?
Yeah, it looks good.
Okay. Why did we need to do this? Finding aids at Georgia Archives. Well, the software that we were using had been what's called out of support since 2013 when we moved to the university system. It means there were no updates. They weren't providing any support to that software. Not only that, but the operating system that it was on, Linux, that version had been out of support since 2013. And our information technology people in Athens, who are absolutely wonderful, told us, you have to get out of this. we can't support this anymore. Now, we had 2 other major upgrades that we had to make, and they helped us through that. And they were very, very patient with us, and that because they understood that there's not a whole lot of options for archives for finding aid software. But they kept telling us, we've got to move out of this. We looked and looked and looked, and we finally chose a software that's called Archive Space, and it was developed by archivists, programmers for archivists, by archivists for archivists. And it's pretty much become the standard for finding aids and for managing archives. We moved to this year, migrated all of our data out of the old finding aid system into the new one, and we tried to keep the look of it and the labels as much like the old version as we could, but there is some language that we could not change. And I want to go over this a little bit with you to point out how this software, how the search works, what's the same, what's different, and how it behaves. And I'll try to keep it as simple as possible and point out some of the what's good and what's different. We kept the name Finding Aids at Georgia Archives. Archives, like a lot of profession, has its own vocabulary. Just as purchasing people have their own vocabulary, human resources people have their own vocabulary, psychiatrists have their own vocabulary, so do archivists. But archivists in the United States have different vocabulary from archivists in Europe. And older archives have different vocabulary than newer archives, and the older archives haven't always adopted some of the newer terms. And I think the programmers in designing this software tried to be all things to all archives. And so some of the labels are a little different, should I say. So and having worked with the software and looked at it, there are some terms that some of the decisions, they're a little different and a little bit confusing. And I'm not sure when you look at it that you'll understand, because I don't always understand some of the terms that they came up with. And I want to kind of go over some of them with you. And I think that what we end up with is something, and the only analogy that I can come up with is something like elastic waist pants. They fit everybody and nobody. So with that in mind, I want to show you here that we have something called search behaviors that explains to you how the search engine works. And now you can search by keyword, and most people do, but you can also search by title or by author or subject and note certain identifier, but you have to know what's there in order to do that. And again, most people search by keyword. And the most important thing to remember here is in your search is that the search engine looks for records that contain every word you submit. Now, most people, when they search, they're either going to do a broad search to get a whole lot of records, and they end up sometimes with so many records that it's not very useful to them because there's too much, or they are looking for something very, very specific so that the search words that they submit, they're so specific that they really don't come up with anything. So of course the trick is to come up with the right words for what you're looking for. And unless you know how the data is entered, that can be very difficult to do. So for example, say you know that we have a lot of Crawford County probate records, and that's what you want to look for. You want to find out what we have with Crawford County probate records. And you put those words in, and you think that's a fairly safe search. And we look here, and the first thing you notice is we have 5,607 records, and that's a whole lot. And we have a lot of Crawford County probate records, but it's showing 1 through 50. So there you have that it's only going to show 50 records per screen. And then that means that you have 113 screens to go through. And unlike the virtual vault, you can't change that default. We've told our rep, our service rep, that we think that they should, that's an enhancement that we would like to see to change the number of results shown. We've suggested that we change this to 100 and she's kind of kicked back on that. So we'll see how that goes. Now this is sorting by relevance and we're not sure what that means. You can also sort by title or by year. Let's look at these first results. You have miscellaneous records of the inferior court and miscellaneous records of the marriage records. But down here you have, well, why did we get this? Okay, you've got probate records, Crawford and county. So those are the words we search for, but it's coffee. But you see why that came up. And then here you have Crawford. But what is this? Here's probate and county, but it's Columbia. So we have Columbia County marriage records, but you see why that came up. So you see in counting and casting this wide net, how we came up with these records we didn't expect. So you all understand how keyword searching works. Over here we have filters, and here are a couple of filters that it's that strange vocabulary that I need to explain. The archival records, well, what on earth does that mean where we have 5,605 of them? In archive space, an archival record, as we are using it, it's a thing, it's an object. In our case, it's a box or a folder or a volume, and with boxes, it's different sizes of boxes. So it's a thing. It's not a paper and it's not a document because we don't describe records at that level. It's a container for one of those, a box, a record, or a box or a folder or a volume. A collection, what is that? That kind of makes sense, or a record series. It's a description of these boxes, records, or folders that has something in common about them. And I'm going to click on that because there's only 2 of those. And here we have Crawford County Probate Court. Well, what are these marriage records? Well, why are those in the probate court? Because the probate court marriage records are handled by the probate court. That's why. Up here, the miscellaneous records of the inferior court. If I click on this, the scope and content note, what describes what this collection is. The records submitted by the Crawford County, okay, we have the county's official record books. There are the state records. These are the loose papers that are submitted to be recorded. Wills, annual returns, inventories and appraisements, appraisers' oaths, administrators and guardians' bonds, letters of dismission of administrators and guardians, sales bills, receipts to and from executors, hearings for widows and year supports. Those are the probate records we're looking for. So this is it. We finally got to it. There's also in here strays animals. They're also in this series, and oaths for notaries, justices of the peace, and county commissioners. Okay. This software also, we have to have the dates that are covered, 1822 to 1900, the creator or the author, Crawford County, conditions governing access, they're unrestricted. All of these records in here are unrestricted. We're not going to tell you these are restricted records that you can't look at. The extent, 14.5 cubic feet. The language of the materials, English, that's required in this software. Many archives have materials in different languages. This expand all, this is very important. Don't forget this. Unfortunately, you have to expand it to see all this. This added description. Now, not every one of these records is going to have an arrangement note, but this one does, because the estate records are arranged alphabetically by the surname of the deceased. Some estate records are arranged by the name of the administrator because the court deals with the administrator, not the name of not the deceased. The estrays are arranged by the surname of the freeholder or the property holder, and the oaths by the surname of the officer taking the oath. We have the record groups, the creator or the author, Crawford County. Down here, this external document, this other URL, this is one of those labels I wish we could change, but we don't have control over this. And this is very important, and I wish it wasn't hidden. If you click on that, for those of you who are familiar with the old PDIs, here it is. And this is the list of all of the estate records that are in this series. And I harp on this because we haven't gotten around to putting all these scope and content notes into every record, but we still have this PDI here. And again, I wish we could change this label. Another neat little thing that we have here is this collection. Oops, that's not happened before. This collection organization, you can oh, I've never seen that happen before. This is interesting. This collection organization down here. Interesting. These are the boxes and folders that make up the collection, the box and folder records. If you see this little arrow here, you can click on it. And those are all the individual files that are in the box. If you want us to pull one of these boxes, this identifier, this RCB number is what we need. That's what you need to write down or to email us that we need to pull. If you find one of these, this is what we need, the identifier. Now, another thing to note is if you see we have breadcrumbs up here that will take you back to the box or the series record. Now here in this box record, you see the scope and content note and the dates. This is just from the series note record. It's a little bit confusing, I think, because it's not specific to the box or the folder. It's just repeating what you have from the series record. Just need to point that out. You're not seeing anything different here for the box that you don't have up here. But those are breadcrumbs to take you back. If ever you get down here, you're just clicking around and it gets a little weedy and you're not sure where you are and you want to get back to the beginning, you can always find your way back by clicking home to take you back to the start page, and you can start all over again. Okay. Many people just like to search by names. You can do that. We saw Mary Irby. Here she is. This is what we need to pull her file. And again, that's just the series name, the series record for her. It's not specifically about her estate record. If I wanted to search another name here, here are 26, and you see when I search that, I get Lewis, Holland, and Edward Hicks. If I scroll through here, oh, well, this Lewis Hicks, this is the one I want, and I need to show you something important here. This looks like, oh, well, I could filter all of these results and maybe just get Lewis Hicks. F. Hicks. Well, it blew up on me. So this filter search within results, it is a bug, and they know it's a bug. So we are hoping that it will be fixed in the next release. Another thing, we wish that you could go back to your search results. You'll have to use the back button to do that. But if I search Louis F. Hicks, in addition to just his estate file, you'll see that there are all kinds of files on him. There are civil and criminal case files. There are marriage records. You can learn all kinds of things about him just by putting his name in, which is pretty cool. So we just need these identifiers to pull those files on him. If you're searching for something like Fulton Tax Digest, you can certainly put those keywords in there. And I picked Fulton because we have the most of those. You can see all of them here. You can see that these are nice big fonts. They're much bigger than in the old software, but it just means that there are that many, also more screens to go through. So you go through all of those. I know I'm scrolling very fast. If I wanted to, if I sort by date. That really doesn't help me, does it? You can also say, I decide I just want Fulton Tax for 1950. That gives me 10. And then we just need these identifiers right here. Or if there's one specific one, then you can find it there and just give us that and we'll pull it for you. Now, some of you are used to, from the old system, being able to go through series or record groups. So we do have that here. We have 3,324 collections or series. They're not by number, they're by title. We have filters here by the creator or the agency. Unfortunately, these are not arranged alphabetically. I wish they were. They're by the number of results or series under those agencies, most to least, which is kind of crazy. But if you wanted to know all of the series under Surveyor General, you can certainly do that. And again, those are by title. And then you can, let's see, fraudulent land lottery draw records. Oh, that's crazy. I've not seen that happen before. It's this monitor. But also those of you who are used to looking at record groups, here they are in record group number order, which you might be familiar with. So you have your governor's records, and then say you're looking under the executive department, and then executive department minutes. And then you look at the notes here, which will tell you what they are. And then you do have physical access requirements here, which will tell you that the ones from 1778 through 1971 are available on microfilm. So that is a very quick, rough, and dirty tour here through finding aids. Play with it. Do your keyword searching. You cannot break this, no matter how hard you try. If you have any questions, just use, we've got a link to Ask an Archivist here about the resources or about how to use this. Go ahead and email us and we'll be glad to help you. That's my quick and dirty tour through here. If you've got any questions, we've got a little bit of time here. I do want to tell you that we have set the date for Archives and History Day in October. It is Saturday, October 9th. We have not got a theme yet, but be watching our Facebook page and our website for more information, which will be forthcoming.
So Kayla, I just want to make a couple of comments first.
And sorry about the roughness there.
Oh no, I thought it was great. You don't have to worry about anything. So at Kennesaw State University, where I work in the archives department, shortly before I started working there, they had migrated from Archon to Archive Space. So Archive Space is really all that I've had experience with, but I think it's fabulous. Archive Space is so great. Once you figure out how to use it, and it's so simple. I mean, it's great, it's fabulous. And I'm really glad the Georgia Archives has it now. And another thing, the archivist language you were talking about, the specific things we have, when we put stuff in Archive Space, you can change the title so it's like in layman's terms. And I really, really like how on the front page you have the search terms explained. I think that's a really good idea. I like that.
Okay, well, thank you, Maggie. And I may have been a little bit rough on it, but when you're moving from one system to another, the one that you learn is the one that you love.
Right.
And the other observation, Maggie, is that when you put in the data, you know how to search it.
Yeah, exactly.
I learned that the hard way a long time ago when you know, I had put in some records and then someone else in the department couldn't find them, and I couldn't understand why.
Yeah,
well, because I put them in, so I knew what all the terms were.
but
So
once you use it a little bit,
we have to remember that.
yeah, once you use it a little bit and get used to it, it's really fabulous. I like Archive Space.
So what I would tell people is study the data, study those finding aids, study the words that are being used, because once you get familiar with those, then you have a better idea of the terms that you need to use, because what you're thinking may not be what's actually in there. You may be thinking, what the words that you're thinking may not be the words that were actually used to describe the records.
Exactly. That's what I was saying about the layman's terms. We have to know what normal people who aren't us archivists are looking for.
Right. What you may be thinking estate files, it may be described as probate or vice versa. So you need to try both, actually.
So I just don't want people to make, I never want people to get frustrated, but you know, you have to think about it.
Right. And that's also why I said, ask us.
Mm-hmm. And I do have two questions that were put in the chat if you'd like.
Sure.
The first one is the new patron registration in addition to the membership card that is renewed every 5 years?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, we were filling out that database to give you the card anyway.
Oh, okay.
So the patron, we migrated patron data into the new database. So we will be checking your data and validating it when you come in, because we think a lot of that patron data had not been checked. So we want to make sure that everybody is checked and updated. So if you're already registered, we'll just be validating it and making sure that your card's up to date.
Okay.
You may not have to re-register. You may have to update your address if it's out of date. We're just checking everything.
Mm-hmm.
If you are not registered, you'll have to fill that out.
That makes sense. Yeah. I'm sorry. The next question was, is an appointment needed now to do on-site research?
No.
Yay.
No appointments needed. We were already thinking, no appointments before, and we were already moving in that direction when the CDC lifted all those restrictions. So we were already going to that when everything just opened wide up. So don't need it. We do have reduced hours, 1 to 1 to 9 to 12 and 1 to 4. We are closed over the lunch hour and everybody has to leave, but that has more to do with, we are short of staff. We are horribly short of staff. That doesn't have anything to do with COVID.
Yeah, so just make sure to look on the website first for hours
We
or
do have-
call.
Right. And y'all, please, still, I would advise everyone to call and check the website before you go anywhere, because
Yeah.
there is still, I'm still surprised at the number of people who just show up anywhere. You still need to do that, because there are still a number of institutions that are under reduced hours, and for a variety of reasons. So yes, please do call and check before you go anywhere.
Another question just got put in the chat.
Mhm.
Are they going to I guess the archives, are they going to recover new records that may have been overlooked? I'm not exactly sure which records he's referring to, but then he said, it is hard to find Madison County records before 1800.
That's probably because Madison County wasn't created in, I think I'm thinking 1807.
Okay. So just
I'm
have,
thinking that off the top of my head.
yeah. So just find out the history of when Madison
Right.
County was created.
The card catalog for the county records on microfilm is in the virtual vault, and it's called County Records on Microfilm. The first card for that county has the date of the creation of the county. So that's a quick lookup. And well, in fact, the Wikipedia page for the county is going to tell you when it was created. That card will also tell you if there was a courthouse county disaster, if you don't have access to Paul Graham's book. But that will also, I tell people, check also what's available on microfilm, because sometimes they'll say all records lost or something, but sometimes some records survived, and so you need to double check about the records loss. Because one of the reasons why you may not be able to find the records is because there was a county disaster.
Yeah, and even
Cynthia's got it. 1811. Thank you, Cynthia.
yeah, I was about to read that, and it said it was created from Oglethorpe, Clark, Franklin, Jackson, and Elbert counties. So you got to check all of those counties if you're looking for Madison County before 1811.
There is a book about counties. I do a keyword search on county boundaries. It's in the ad hoc collection that has all of that information about when they were created and what counties the land was taken from and what counties they gave up land to. And that's very valuable.
Yeah, and isn't that also the information that can be found in the dollar hide maps? How the counties changed from every single census, like over the time. Yeah, so you can see how the counties changed and their boundaries and all that kind of stuff. So I don't see any more questions in the chat, but I would like everybody to feel free to unmute themselves and ask a question if you have anything.
Well, Maggie, this is John. I don't know if you can hear me. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I was the one asking the questions about Madison County. Anyway, I have a great-great-grandfather, Augustus Caesar Smith, who married his first wife, Cynthia Moore, spelled funny, Senthersi, but I don't think Moore was her given name. I think it was given to her, because I'm thinking she was an American Indian. I'm not positive. I can't prove it, but I hadn't been able, I found Moores and put them in my family tree as her parents, but I can't find where she was born, or where they listed in any Bible information, anything that was their daughter. And I can't find my Augustus Smith parents either. I have some that I think are close on the census records from where he died in Alabama. He died in 1880, but he was born around 1800. But I do show a record where him and Cynthia were married in Madison County in the I can't remember what the date was, but that's all I've been able to find. you know, and like you're saying, Madison County didn't start to exist till 1811.
Yeah,
So-
so you've got a whole list of other counties to look through to see if it's in one of those.
Right, and it's hard to find because sometimes he was called Gus, you know, Smith, and then sometimes they would just do AC Smith or just A Smith, and when you're looking by name, you get, you know, several billion Smiths come up, but you know, it's hard to figure out if Oglethorpe had records previous to 1811, and
Well,
hopefully I can.
Stephen Johnson just also put in the chat, if you can see it, it says, look at the website, digitalnewberry.org for maps of all county boundary changes of the US states, including Georgia. So he put the link in there if you'd like to copy that. Or
That is a cool site.
yeah, I think I might copy that link.
Yeah, it is really neat.
It's much
You
more
can see how the state changes over the years.
Yeah.
because the dollar hide is great, but it only shows the boundary changes from census to census. It doesn't show all those intermediate ones.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
for Georgia, in the your archive site. Sorry, I still have anesthesia brain. The Bryant book gives you those intermediate county boundaries, and it's in, you know, the digital archives that is at the Georgia Archives. But I do the county boundaries, like you said, in the archive, the ad hoc.
Yes.
And,
Yeah.
and that is a great resource.
That book was used. It was used as part of the surveyor's licensing test.
Yeah, some of the counties ran over into Alabama previous, you know, some of my research showed that, you know, the county lines did cross over in Alabama sometimes too, you know, down around Chambers County, Alabama, and Jefferson. But
And that's why
I can't hardly.
the Newberry site is neat because it does cover the entire United States, and you can just see how just by clicking how and putting in the year how the boundaries change over time. It's very, very visual.
Yeah.
And the book is
Well, the Cherokee territories covered a lot of, you know, part of North Alabama and Georgia, and all the way down to Midwest Alabama too. You know, during even into the 1800s. But you know, the Indian records are hard to sort through because they don't have too many documentation until, you know, after the 30s, 20s, and 30s. You know, and I'm not a pro genealogist. I'm just a guy sitting at home. I've been doing this since, you know, the 90s, trying to create my family history, you know, keep up with it because I love to find out where people came from, you know, and everybody's fussing about how this gender stuff and stuff's going on. If they read some of the documentation on your ancestors, because I have some that's been called idiots, you know, from idiot censuses and stuff like that.
It's all very politically incorrect for our time, but back then it wasn't. So Eve also put in the chat, if anyone's interested more about the Newberry Library and how they have an interactive historic county boundaries website. And she put another link up to Roots Web if you want to check that out. Does anybody else have any questions or any comments for Kayla? There is in the chat, the newspapers for Athens have been digitized on the Digital Library of Georgia. Go to the historic newspapers website to search them. So a lot of good tips. And Carrie Allen said, this is the interactive map that I use, and has a link in the chat, mapofus.org/Georgia. Has the advantage of clicking on year or county. Okay, there is a question. How can I access records of ancestors with origins from Jamaica? Do you know anything about Jamaica origins?
I do not. Can anybody else chime in?
Only thing I can think of is look at FamilySearch and Ancestry. You may have to get their international or worldwide editions to do that, or MyHeritage, or Find My Past.
I would think FamilySearch, well, FamilySearch is going to have everything available without having to upgrade.
Right.
And I think FamilySearch is probably going to be a little bit stronger, but that's just.
Well, I would also recommend using the FamilySearch Research Wiki, because for its
Yes.
international in scope, it gives great basic information on almost every place.
And someone
Gives
just
you links to records. So I highly recommend you do that for any international place.
And also someone just pointed out that FamilySearch has microfilmed church records from Jamaica. Now that should be in their catalog if they have not
Right.
scanned it.
Yeah, and then one more question. How can I find birth records for 1898 in Knox County, Tennessee?
Again,
Probably
go to their wiki, go to their wiki, FamilySearch's wiki.
most southern states didn't require birth and death records until the 20th century.
Right.
So you have to do creative things.
So, but the wiki will tell you when Tennessee started requiring them, and also for Knox County, what's available.
All right, well, we have about 5 more minutes. If anybody else wants to chime in with anything.
I think the DAR has some Bible records too that might contain birth records, you know, prior to 1800. People wanted to go to the DAR website.
Yeah,
Daughters of American Revolution.
The DAR website actually has a good resources, good information. You can go there for a lot of things. When did the U.S. federal census begin? 1890? No, that's the one that's missing. Sorry,
1790.
1790.
Yes.
But Georgia's missing several of them, right? 1810, 1800.
Georgia's missing some, yes.
Right.
Yeah, and the
How about-
1890 federal census is the one I was thinking of that had the fire and water damage. But yeah, 1790 is when it started. And why is Georgia missing some?
A lot of the records were burned by the British in the War of 1812. And I think probably both FamilySearch and Ancestry have good accounts of what's available for any state.
Yeah, and so did Georgia do a state census is one of the questions in the chat.
They did, but it's my understanding there aren't any in existence today,
There's
correct?
very, very, very few
Right.
returns available. We've got a few, and Hargret has a few. But
And there is
by no means is it statewide.
No. And years ago, Taylor funded a book, I think by Lainhart, Lainhart, that lists all of the state censuses for Georgia that are
right.
extant.
And it's also a little bit inaccurate.
As are most early publications.
Yeah,
I should say a little bit misleading rather than, yeah.
Us old Southern people used to keep stuff hid too.
Yeah.
They didn't want everything to get out. That's why I was saying if something
We
recover
tried,
any old records.
we tried to update what's available on our website under census, on our census section under resources for what's available both here and at Hargret, to the best of our knowledge.
Yeah, I have several, ancestors from Twiggs County, and I've used fortunately, some of the tax lists, early tax lists, and 1818, 18, 26, and so on, have survived. that, does offer an early substitute for a state census.
Yeah, they love to keep up with money.
One more question that did pop up. Are there records of freedmen in Georgia?
Yes, there should be a large record, freedmen records. Even on Ancestry, they show a bunch of freedmen records you can look up.
It's,
And a lot of them
it's,
are bank accounts and stuff, doing with banking and land, I believe.
are you, are you talking, what time period are you talking about?
For the freedmen's,
You're talking about freedmen, not free persons of color before the war.
It just says freedmen.
Okay.
There was some deals.
Aggie, there's a great article in the NGS magazine, I think it's for this month, that's on freedmen's records and websites and how to use it, etc. That particular magazine will be at the archives, available probably in September or October, whenever we can get it to them. But they possibly can go onto the NGS website and find some information too. Oh, I'm sorry. NGS is National Genealogical Society, just in case.
Well,
Oh, sure,
yeah.
she's talking about free persons of color before the war.
Oh.
There is information. It's you've got to, it's hit and miss. You've got to dig for it. Free persons of color were required to register with a guardian in the probate court after 1818. That's recorded in different places from county to county. Some counties kept a separate register. Others, it's in the minutes. And again, you've got to look for it. And they're also listed as is pointed out in the 1850 and the 1860 censuses.
You also have to
They're
remember
they're also listed in the regular censuses. They're hash marked in there as part of the household. So there is a free person of color in there, but they're not listed by name. It's only the head of the household that's listed by name. So, no more than wives and children are. So they're enumerated, but the register should have them. They're supposed, but you got to look for it.
And usually they use the owner's last name too. A lot of times the owner's last name is used. I hate to say that, but that's what it was. And then later on, I noticed I had one in my ancestry that was raised with my great-great-grandfather, just like a brother. They joined the Confederate Army together. And while they were together, he used the Stigall last name. But after the war, he changed his name to Payne. So it's hard to find. You might see a change where it went from Stigall, and then went to Payne later on. So they might want to look for that too.
I just stumbled, for example, across in Pike County in FamilySearch, and FamilySearch is having to deal with records for all 50 states, so they don't know what the local record keeping practices are, but there are 3 books that are labeled inferior court records for county purposes, and one of those books is actually ordinary records and free persons of color, their guardianships, and included in there are guardianships of free persons of color.
Yeah,
But
some of the
you're not
parents.
going to know that by the way it's listed in FamilySearch, but that's where it is.
Yeah, some of the parents were both lost. The mom and the dad during the war, and the eldest slave on the premises would stay with the family of the kids. So that's why you have weird census records. They show a black head of house, but younger kids white. So you have to look for that too, which was a good thing. I felt was, really great for a slave to stay and take care of his owner's kids. That was amazing.
So So the lunch break is about to start. I hate to break up. Sorry. If you have any more questions for Kayla, you can put them in the chat. We're going to leave the Zoom, we're going to leave the session. We're going to leave it open completely all the way through lunch and everything. So we do have kind of a longer lunch